Okay, let's go ahead and start off with some quick announcement. The only announcement I have really is the Alumni Panel, which will be starting at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So if you do have time, be sure to make sure you attend that and ask a bunch of questions for them. We have some pretty good alumni here. There's TJ, I see Matt there, and a bunch of other ones. So that one will be a really good one. So again, that is tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then Mark will be sending out a Zoom link for that. So that is the only announcement I have for today. So now let's actually get into the main topic, and that is into Rails. So yesterday we went into Rails, but we actually broke it up into small manageable parts. We actually went into the model and database section of Rails. Today we are actually going to go back into that section, only briefly. The main thing about today's lecture is going to take care of the rest of it, routing, controller, and views. So that will be the lesson for today. We're mainly going to focus mostly on the controller and views, and then the routing here and there at the beginning. And then together we'll put all of them into one single project, and then we'll see how they all work for a particular web page. So let's go ahead and go into your iTerm, and let's go ahead and CD into your desktop, and be sure to utilize your tab completion. So you can use tab after you type and CD into your DPL fall folder. And then we are going to create a new Rails project. What is the command to create a new Rails project? Starts with an R.
Is it Rails and then new?
Yep. And then the name of the project. Today we'll be doing like a Reddit. But what do we need to do afterwards before we forget? There's something we need to add to the end of this.
It's the Postgres.
Yep. So -d PostgreSQL. So we need to specify the database for the Rails application, or else the default one won't work for us. And then make sure that the elephant is running, because it does need it to be ran. This one will be even faster than what it completed yesterday. And then we'll go into these steps here. So just a review of what the MVC is that is mainly part of the whole full stack environment. So it stands for models, views, and controllers. So the models is in charge of any database constraints, any validations, and associations. So if data is going to go through to the database, it has to go through the model first. Think of it like kind of like a bodyguard or a bouncer. Like before you get into the club, you have to validate all your stuff. That's what the model does. And then the other ones is views and controllers. So views is just technically HTML pages for you to use and interact with. This is what the user will see and interact with, is with the view. And depending on the action, depending on what the user clicks on, that will lead into some sort of route. So if you click on a single button, that will take you to like another page, or it will create something, update, or delete something. So that will depend on what they're doing, and that will lead them into a certain route. And then depending on the route, then the routing will point them back into the controller. The controller is basically the traffic directors. They will either take them into another view page, or it will add data into the database and then take them back to another view page. That is essentially how it all works together. And we'll kind of see how it all goes through within the code itself. But this is kind of like the gist of how the data will flow. Looks like mine is still going. So every time that we create a Rails project, we need to go to housekeeping items. So those are stuff that you need to do at the very beginning just to help get you started within your Rails application. And those are items such as when you create it, make sure you have the Postgres database. And then afterwards, make sure that you're CD into it, create the database, add all the gems, etc. So we'll be doing those steps next, right after it's done completing. And then after we did those steps, the next step would be planning. So we need to do some planning, see how we are going to create all these items, and then we'll implement the planning process. So go ahead and let it run. It might take a while. But after it's ran, make sure that you're CD into it, or else you'll get some weird error of saying like you can't run a bundle in here because there's no gem file, etc. That just means that you're not CD into the project. Okay, and then let's also open it up into our VS Code. So with the housekeeping items is to change the Ruby versions if you need to. So that'll be in the .ruby version or gem file. Our case is fine. Later on when we update our Ruby version, we might need to change it. But for what it is, it should be good. The other thing is to add any gems that we need to use. For now, we will only add the Pride gem. Later on, we'll add even more gems for like authentication and styling. But for now, let's go ahead and replace the stuff in the development group around line 31 and replace it with Pride here. And I'll be using Pride within the lecture. So it's okay if you have or don't have this gem for this lecture. I would strongly recommend it to have it in all of your projects for your debugging tools. So again, this will be in your gem file. And the reason why we put it at this particular location is that if we put it outside of this development group, that means that the project needs Pride for it to run. And Pride is a debugging tool. It doesn't need Pride for it to run. So that's why we need to put it in the development section where when we do work on it or when we do tests, we can use Pride. And we're only using Pride in those instances, not when we are having it run within the project itself. Okay, and then after you add all the necessary gems, go ahead and run a bundle to install the gems. And then some of the gems may require you to do some configurations. Like if you're testing, there's some configurations for testing. For styling, there's some configuration for styling. But luckily for us, Pride doesn't have any configurations there. Awesome. So the next item of business is to create our database. So the keyword would be bundle exec, use Rake Rails, db create. So we need to, at the very beginning of the project, create our database for us to use because we are going to house a bunch of data for us to be saved. So let's go ahead and create that database. And that will create two databases, one for development, one for testing. We'll be working in the development database for now. Okay, now the next step, after you create your database, I would recommend you all to plan out what it is you're building. And you can do that in multiple ways. You can do that in the README, or you can do that in Lucidchart or pen and paper, things like that. So in our case, if we are building out Reddit, I actually took the liberty of doing this beforehand. These are the tables and the columns and also the relationship with that. So that is the typical step of what you would spend the most of your time with at the beginning, is to plan out what you have within your project of table-wise, what each of the table has in relationship, if they have relationship between the tables. So since we're doing a Reddit table, I'm actually going to have 3 layers deep. And it would be, the first would be the sub, and sub only has a name. And then sub will have a second table called topic, and then topic has a title, which is a string, body, and a sub ID. The reason why it has a sub ID because it is relational to this particular table here. So sub has many topics, topic belongs to a sub. So it's a one-to-many relationship here. Now, later in the lecture, we're actually going to add in a third table. So a third type of table for us to add on in addition to our topic. And it will be the comments table. So comment has the author, and then it has the body, and then the topic ID. And that is because topic has many comments, and comment belongs to a single topic. Things like that. So that is how you would break out all of your projects within your within like the planning phase. So if you plan on making like a YouTube, one of the tables could be like a page, right? And then within that page, it might have some comments, and they may be relational to each other. So things like that. So kind of break down what you're trying to build into small manageable parts, because they are going to be multiple tables within that particular project. So typically, it really depends on you and how you really want to tackle the project. I've seen it done both ways. I've seen it done where they do one table at a time and make sure that works, and then they can move on to the next table. I also seen it done where they create all the tables first, and then they are split the tasks up so one person works on each of the tables. I would recommend the first method just because everything depends on the first or second one, because it's very dependent on the other things to work. So what I would recommend is that if you have like a multi-relationship tables like this, I would make sure that everything works with the sub, with all of this Crud action works, and then you can move on to the topics. Because if one of these things doesn't work, then of course, obviously everything down the line won't work either. So I would just take it at the top level and then going down. So we'll be referencing this a lot to build out our stuff. So let's go ahead and implement what we are actually going to do. So if that's the case, if this is what we are building, let's go ahead and create models for each of these tables. And then that will then create tables within our database. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll start off with the sub first. So inside of your terminal, let's go ahead and create a model. In a model, you can do bundle exec rails g model. And then we are doing a sub. And then sub has a name. And since name is a string is the default data type, I don't need to put a colon string here because that's already assumed. And then afterwards, if it's a child, I need to specify the parent. In our case, a sub is the parent, so I don't need to do that. So if it has a parent, then this is something I need to add here as well. So let's go ahead and create this model. So then just note that every time you create a model, it creates a migration file. That means that you need to run a db migrate right after. So let's go ahead and do that step next. So bundle exec rake db migrate. Again, this just runs those sets of instructions to apply to the database. So that way we do have a subs table within our database. Now at this level, this is where you would put all your validations, your methods, all of that inside of the model. So I'm only going to do one validations for now, but to do that, it'll be an app models sub model. And again, when you are creating a model, it's singular. So models are singular, controllers are plural. So later on when we create a controller, it will be plural subs. So here, since I have my models here, so inside of app model submodel here, you can do like validations and associations and all that. I'll just do one validations for now, but typically you would do more. So validate presence of name, and then it will be presence true. I believe it's like this. Let's double check that. Yeah, that's what it is. So let's just put one validations for now. Later on, we can add more, but the main topic would be other things. So that would be app, models, sub. This ensures that we do have a name when we create a sub. It can't be blank or whatever. But yeah, so that is the model tidbit. Let's actually move on. So the next thing that we need to do is do our get flow. So let's initially push this up into GitHub. And I would actually do it right after you create your database and planning. So yeah, it's a little bit late in the game, but let's go ahead and push this initially into GitHub. So we'll do a get add, get commit -m initial. And the next step requires us to go into GitHub itself and create a repo up there. I have it right here. Let's create a new repo. We'll do Reddit. And we'll copy the SSH. Make sure it's SSH. Click on the clipboard so it copies it. And here, make sure that this is your SSH, or else it won't work. So it'll be get remote add origin, and then paste. So make sure that you have your own remote there. Okay. And then do a get push origin master. Awesome. So make sure you get those steps down. The more you do it, the more it'll start to sink in. So now let's continue on. So those are the initial steps. Is after you create your project, you go ahead and add gems, and then you create your database, push things up to get, plan out all of your models and tables and all the relationships there, and you start to implement them. And how we're doing it, we're just doing it one level at a time. So I won't do all the models quite yet. So now let's actually go on to the next step. After we create the model and migrate it, we need to create the controller. So to create controller is very similar of how we create a model is with the Rails G command. So bundle exec Rails G. In our case, we're creating a controller. And models are singular, controllers are plural. So in this case, it's the subs controller, plural. And then here, these are additional pages that we want to have. So we want the index, show, new, and edit. Typically, you would want these 4 pages for us to use. And we also want to skip routes because we don't want the default routes that they have. We'll be creating our own routes. So the index, show, and new, this is where we would specify the actions that require pages. Notice how we don't have the create, update, or delete here because those don't require pages. Those are just separate actions that you don't need a page for. And this will create a bunch of stuff for us. The ones that we worry about is the controller, as well as the routes that it would need to be created, and also the views as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the routes first. We'll talk about routes for a quick sec, and then we'll hit the controllers. So if you want to navigate into your routes, it will be in the config folder and then routes. You have to scroll down. It's alphabetical, so the routes would be right there. So again, if we take a look at a diagram, everything that we do inside of the browser, they would pertain to a particular route. So if it doesn't get to a particular route, that's when you get like a 404 page or a page not found, things like that. So everything that you should be able to do in your application would pertain to a route, and that would lead you somewhere into the controller itself. So with that, so these are the typical kinds of routes you would see. So there's something called resources, which would generate all of the Crud actions and all of the actions that you need for a particular controller. So that is one of the routes. The other one is like a custom route. You can do those with like they kind of look like this. You would specify what kind of HTTP verb you're using. In our case, it might be a get, and then there would be like so, and then that would go into the people controller, and then the new method. And then you can do like to as well. To so this one is going to be where the URL is. I flipped them. So this could be like new form. So this is what they would need to type in inside of the URL up here to get to the people's controller new action. So you can do that with all of the HTTP verbs there. So you can make a custom route. And the other one is going to be a root route. So root route is essentially if you launch your page at the very beginning, like localhost, if you're just going to localhost 3000, that is the home page. That is the root page that you're leading to. So that is what we are doing here with root here. So typically that would be like your index page or your home page. So in our case, let's just have ours be our subs controller index action. So that will go into the subs controller and then the index action, which is the index method. So essentially when I'm talking about actions, those are actions you can do within the website. So you can do like the index, you can create a sub, you can delete a sub, things like that. Those are all actions that we can do. We specify those actions and what they do inside of the controller. Here, this is more of what we are doing when they hit a certain URL. So those are what is typically found inside of Rails routes here. And if you want to do a route for all of the CRUD actions, then you would have to custom do them. It'll be like get subs new, or like a new sub or whatever you call it, to the sub new. And then you'll have one that's called subs. That will go into the index. And then you also have something that looks like this. You'll have a sub and then /:ID. And that will go into like the show or the delete. So what this :ID is that this is actually a placeholder. This is a placeholder for like a number value for the ID. So if we have /sub/3 here, then that will take me to the ID of 3 for the subs. So this is just being broad, and we're saying that this is a placeholder for the actual value of the ID here. And that's what that is for. And then you'll have like other ones, you'll have like a post subs, and that would do like other things as well. So you can see how it may be annoying to do it manually. So a better thing to do is don't do it manually. Actually have Rails do most of the work. Is that instead of typing this all by hand by doing your own custom routes, which you could, it will still work, the better and most efficient way is to use the resources keyword. So the resources keyword actually does all of this for us. It does all of the new index show, create, update, all of the actions that you can have. And then in our case, we want them for subs. So this will take care of all of our CRUD actions. So that way we don't need to do them all manually. So that is what that keyword does. So this keyword actually creates all of these and more. So let me go ahead and slack out what I have. And then I'll show you how you can view your routes. There's actually 2 ways. So again, this is in your config folder and then in the routes file.
So just a question. So when you make the static migration, right, that will go to a specific page when someone goes to your website, correct?
Correct. Like
And-
what we did on the first day, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then these will just basically make you go to different pages of your website, correct? Okay.
So this will eventually take you into the controller. So right now we only have the subs controller, but on Monday we We have the contact controller as well as the static pages. And that will take you to inside of the controller itself, which will then take you into the views. So depending on the actions that it is pertaining to, whether it's like a get, post, update, or delete, then that will take you to somewhere in the controller, and the controller will then either take you to the database or into the view pages. Good question. Nice. But yeah, so currently we don't have a homepage. We just have the subs index, which shows all of the subs be our homepage. So technically that is technically our homepage. But in actuality, you would have like a separate homepage, which you would need to create with a separate controller. Okay. So let me show you what you can do to view your routes. So if you want to view your routes, you can do bundle exec rake routes. And I used to use this a lot, but then I had multiple panels within my terminal, and it just got a little bit chaotic. So this shows you all the routes and all of the requests and everything as well. You may need to zoom out just a bit to see the full information like so. But let me actually show you a better display. So instead of doing rake routes, what I like to do is I like to run my server. So go ahead and run your server. So bundle exec rails s for server. And technically you can do like -p. And if you want to add a different port rather than 3001, you can do like a 3002 or 5480. You can specify the port that you want to have. But by default, the 3000 works just as good. So then that will start up the server. And while that starts up, go ahead and navigate into localhost 3000. So again, all I typed was bundle exec rails s, and that starts the Rails server here. And we want to keep it running. So make sure you do keep it running, you don't exit out of it. And also when you're done with the project, remember to stop the server, because sometimes if students forget to stop their servers, it will continue to run even though that your computer is off or if it's asleep and stuff. And then you would have to delete that port manually. And that would be additional steps that you would need to take. So make sure you do stop it every single time that you aren't using it. So then if you go to localhost 3000, looks like we do have some migrations pending. And this is what Rails error looks like. So Rails errors typically are inside of your terminal. And it may look like a lot, and that's because it is a lot. The reason being is that it actually gives you a stack trace, which is a things that it did before it reaches the error. So typically, if you have an error inside of your terminal, make sure you go to the very top of the error. And like if you just see like a bunch of stack traces like this, that's not correct. Scroll to the very top, and this is where the error is. And this should match with the error here. So these two errors should match. And for this particular error, migrations are pending. That just means that we didn't do a migrate. So let's go ahead and do a migrate. So let's go ahead and stop our server. We'll do a bundle exec rake db migrate. Which I thought I did. I guess in my part, I forgot to press enter. If yours doesn't have an error, that's just fine. Okay, so let me go ahead and start my server again. And then here, this will take you into the main Rails page. But in actuality, we actually want to take a look at the routes. So if you want to go into the routes, where you would go to is it will be localhost and then whatever port you specified. In most cases, it will be 3000. And it will be /rails/info/routes. So it will be /rails/info/routes. So this is another way you can access your routes. I rather prefer this way than actually inside of your terminal. It's way up to you of where you want to have it. So sometimes if you are getting help, and whether it's from me or TAs, or if you put it inside of a Slack channel, we may ask you to take a look at your routes. So this is the exact location of where you can access your routes for. Okay, so all of these other routes, those are just for Rails for it to run and for mailers and stuff, which we won't be using. So, but the ones that we are going to be using is the ones that we specified, which has everything to do with subs here. So here with the subs, you can see that it has all of the routes for all the actions that we need. So instead of having it done this way, which would have taken forever, and it will take even longer for our other two models, we just do resources and in the name of the controller, and it will generate the right routes for us to use. So within this routes, it'll give you a table, and let me show you what each column means. So within the first column, this is the helper. So the helper is what you can use inside of Ruby or inside of your ERB or within your links or wherever it is that you need to use it. You can use this helper here, and that will reference the same exact line across. So if I want to do this particular line, I can just say substack, similar to this here. So technically, these should only show up on items that has pages. So if you do need to go to a particular page, they do have helpers with them. The next column is going to be the HTTP verb. So the HTTP verb is those CRUD actions that we are trying to do and the browser is communicating to the controller. So these are very important because as you can see here, some of the URLs that we have are pretty much the same. The only difference between them is the HTTP verb, is what exactly we're doing, which CRUD actions that we're actually doing here. So that's why the HTTP verb is really important for you to know of which path it is that you're going to. And then afterwards, this is the path. This is what the URL would be if you need to go to some of these pages. Again, if you see a colon ID here, that is just a placeholder for the actual ID to be there. And this represents a single sub here. So if I want to take a look at a sub with the ID of 3, then it will be /sub/3 here. And you can do that for updating and deleting. So it will be /sub/3, and then it will be a delete request. So that is this section right here. And then here, here over in this last section, this is where the endpoints are going to be at. So as you can see here, this is the controller that you'll be going to, and then the actions. We'll be going into actions in a little bit. So these are the typical CRUD actions and other actions that you're able to do within your website. So the index is to look at all the subs. Show is to look at a single sub, create a sub. That is, or the new is for looking at a new form. Edit is for the edit form. And this is for updating a sub and destroying a sub. And we do have two updates here. There's put and patch. We mostly just use the put here. So those are routes. So let's actually, let me show you one more thing about routes. And that is if we have multiple relationships here, which we do in this particular project. So let's go ahead and create the topics. And we'll do the topics controller, and then we'll see how those routes will look like because of the relationship. So let's go ahead and stop our server. You can do that with Control-C. And now let's go ahead and build out the second type of controller and models. It does matter which one you create first. You can't have a controller until you have a model. So make sure that if you are going to be making a controller and model, make sure the model goes first. So we bundle exec Rails G model. And in this case, what is our model called for this table here?
Topic.
Yep. And is this singular or plural?
Singular.
Exactly. Again, models are singular, controllers are plural. I'm just going to drill that down. It'll sound annoying here and there, but it'll be worth it later. And then topic has a, I think I put title. Yeah, let's do title. Topic has a title, which is a string, a body, which is a text. And then something else that it has is that it belongs to a sub. So since this is a child, I need to specify its parent. So make sure that you do have this step, or else you have to do a migration afterwards. So it'll be subs : belongs to. Let me zoom out just for a bit. There's no spaces. It's just kicking me out in the next line. Give me one sec. It'll look like that. So it'll be subs : belongs to. We're just specifying who the parent is. Go ahead and press enter after that. Again, after we create a model, it creates a migration file. And what do we do when we have a new migration file? We'll do a bundle exec rate db migrate. We need to migrate those instructions.
So after every time you make a model, you got to make them migrate as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Because every time you make a model, there's a new migration file. And then every time you make a migration file, you need migrate. Yep. Awesome. So at this stage, this is where you would add those validations. In this case, we're not going to add any validations because we don't want to focus too much in the models, but we will add associations. So let's go into the map models and the topic model. So the topic belongs to a sub, a single sub. That's correct. That relationship is correct. Now we need to do it both ways. Now we need to have a relationship from the sub to the topic. So what relationship does a sub has to a topic? You remember the relationship we have? This one will help you here. So what is the relationship between sub and topic here?
Inherited.
What association with that? So we have belongs to, has many, and has one.
So the sub's a parent, and that's the child?
Yep. But out of belongs to, has one, and has many, which one of those three associations does sub has to topic?
Has many?
Yep.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be has many. So sub has many topics. I can't highlight that. Okay. So yeah, that is the association. So sub has many topics. So then in this case, inside of the subs model, we just need to add in the has many topics plural because there's more than one. That's why it's plural. So make sure that you add that inside of your models here. So the app models and then sub. Yeah. And then topic already has the relationship. We don't need to do that. And then again, this is where you would add all of the subs methods like instance and class methods and validations and all of that. But we'll just leave it be. Let's focus back on routes. So now let's go back into the routes. And then now let's actually go into our terminal and create a controller for us to use. So then here it would be a bundle exec Rails G controller. And then in this case, is topic singular or plural? For controllers.
Plural.
Yep. So models are singulars, controllers are plural. Then we need to specify that we want the index, show, new, and edit pages. And let's also skip the routes so we can make our own routes. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go into the particular routes here. So technically, if it is associated, your routes will be a little bit different. And technically you could do it this way, or you could have them both separated. But I think it will be a little bit better for you to reference a parent through the route itself. So if it is a relational table, since we have sub as the parent and topic is the child, then let's also have our routes be that as well. So sub is here, and then topics will be right underneath. So it'll be do, end, and then we'll have our resources topics like so. So we have embedded routes here. Let me show you what that looks like inside of our routes. So let me go ahead and slack this out. If you refresh your routes now, let's go ahead and run our server. Okay, so now if we refresh our routes, you can see that we have more routes here. So we have the original sub routes, and then everything having to do with topic would have to also deal with the parent as well. So here you can have, so in order for you to go into like the index page to see all of the topics, it will be the subs topic path helper, but the URL will be /sub, and then you need to specify who the parent is. So you need to specify who the parent is, and then you can see all the topics. But for something like if I need to update a topic, it will be like so. It'll be /subs, and then the sub ID, who is the parent, and then the topic, and then the topics ID right here. So this is the parent's ID, and then this is the child's ID. So that's how you know how to distinguish between each of the topics, is with the ID here. We want to have different placeholders, because if we have the same placeholder, if we call this ID and this ID, then it will reference the wrong items. It would reference a wrong sub or wrong topic, and we don't want that. So that's why we have two different references here. And that's typically how you would do a parent-to-child relationship routes, is you need to do them with the parent and child. So later on, if we have our implementation of comments, which we'll do a little bit later, you may be tempted to embed them one more time. But let me show you why that is a bad idea. So let me do this so you don't have to. So don't do it this way. So let's say that we have our comments resources. I refresh my page. Subs is it's only singular here. Topics, you need to have a sub ID. But then for comments, if we go ahead and embed that, not only do we need the subs ID, we also need the topics ID. And then later on, if we were doing an update, we also need to keep track of the comment that ID as well. So if we do it this way, it'll give you a really long URL, and you need to keep track of multiple things. You need to keep track of the parent and the grandparent and other information. So that's why I don't recommend doing it 3 levels deep when you do have more than one relational table like so. So this is a do not do. So don't do it this way. It'll make your life miserable. So do not do this below. So a better thing to do is that you're still going to have one layer deep. So it'll be the sub and topic. So that is the parent and child. So sub is the parent, topic is the child. And if we have comments, then we'll just do that one more time. We'll do resources topics, do end, and then we'll do resources comments like so. So this is the actual prefer way. Instead of doing it many layers deep, super embedded routes, just embed them only once. So this is the preferred way. So this is the parent, that's the child, this is the parent, and that's the child. So now we take a look at our routes here. You can see that subs is fine. And then when we are taking a look at topic, don't do the singular topic here. That's the wrong one. That will point you to the wrong place. And you also need the subs as the parent. So make sure that you're doing it this way. So make sure it's the parent and child here. And then for comments, the parent is topic and the child is comments. Things like that. So that cleans up our information and our routes a lot if we are doing it that way. So let's do it this way now going forward. It's just 2 layers deep. So this is best practice, like so. Okay. And occasionally, if you have different actions, then like these actions that are listed to the left, if that's the case, you may have to do a custom route. And a custom route, you just need to do like the HTTP verb, the URL that you want it to have, and where it's going to. So let me go ahead and list that out. It would be the HTTP verb for a custom route. And then this is followed by a string of the URL you want it to go. And then this would be the final destination. So it would be to the controller action here. So this is for custom routes. So these are for actions that are on the right side here. Custom routes. Okay. So those are the routes. Any questions about the routes before we go on to our first break? Okay. Again, routes are just where the page URL is right up here, and that will lead you to somewhere in the controller. So depending on what URL it is, what HTTP verb it is, it will take you to somewhere in the controller, which will then take you to either the database or to the views. So let's go ahead and take a break. Let's come back at 7:10. Yeah, let's do 7:10. Meantime, let's go ahead and push this up to GitHub, and then we'll come back at 7:10. Okay, let's go ahead and get back into it. So picking up where we left off, we just created all the routes, and we only created the subs and topics controller. So let's now go into app. Let me close everything so you'll see it better. We'll go into app, controllers, and then subs controller. So let me go ahead and write some notes right up here, and then we'll talk about some things here. So again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. This will make a lot more sense today. And that is the term skinny controllers, fat models. So skinny controllers and then fat models. Essentially what this means is that any logic that is having to do with the individual sub, in addition to what you need to do with it, such as if you need to like do a subtotal, or if you want to sort all of the subs, things like that, that would not go into the controller. That would actually go into the models. The controller is only there for just actions. So these are actions you can do within your database, as well as within those pages that you have here. So those are the actions that we specify. So any other thing will be inside of the models. So that is fat model skinny controllers. Now, something else that we need to talk about is that we have our CRUD actions. So we have our C, R, U, and D. So these are our CRUD actions. So CRUD stands for create, read, update, and destroy. So these are the typical actions that you're able to do within any kind of applications that you're working with. On all of these actually correspond to HTTP verbs. Create has a post. Any read request will be a get. And then we'll have update. This would be put or patch, but we typically use put. And destroy is actually going to be delete. So those are the CRUD actions and HTTP verbs that correspond to each of those actions there. Okay. So let me actually show you other items of business. So inside of the controller, you have methods here. And these methods are called actions. Again, actions are anything that you can do within your particular website that is corresponding to the sub. So actions are items you can do for a controller. So these are all actions here. And the reason why these are here first is that these all have corresponding pages with them. We have the index page, show page, new, and edit page. So those are the pages that we have. Something else that we need to note is that all actions must return HTML, JSON, XML, or redirect to a method that does. So it has to return one of these particular types of data. So HTML is a web page. JSON and XML, those are just objects, object notations. So those are more specific for objects. And that's what we'll be using a little bit later on. But for now, we'll be doing HTML pages. And some of these by default, if it's a GET request, it already renders a HTML. So we need to take some of these back into the HTML realm if we do need that. Awesome. So before we go into filling this out, we also need to talk about convention over configuration. So with convention over configuration, what that means is that within Rails itself, it actually follows a particular pattern. There's always that set of pattern that we always follow, like the way that we create our project, the way that we are filling out our models and controllers. Controllers itself, the way we fill them out, it's actually the same way we fill them out for all of your projects. So let me actually show you the pattern, and I want you to understand the pattern first before we fill out the actual controller. So once you understand the pattern, you can see everything that kind of links up into the controller. So all of the controllers that you would ever build will follow this particular pattern. So we'll do all of our read first. And this one would be a GET request. And then we're actually going to do the index. So essentially the index shows you all of the topics or all of the items here. In this case, it will show you all of the subs. And it will actually do it two ways. It will first create an instance for you to reference it, and then it will take you to that page. Rails actually does that for you. So a typical index action will be the at model name plural. So at model name plural. So whatever the model name is, it will be the plural of that. And then capital model name all. So that is the pattern for the index. Is the at model names plural and then the capital model name dot all. So that's the typical index action there. And then we'll do the show. So that one is also a read get request as well. And then the show shows a single item. So this one will show all of the subs. This one will show a single sub. And it needs the ID. So you need to pass in the ID. And then the pattern for a typical show action will look like this. So it will be def show, and you're setting the instance of the model name singular, because we're only showing one of them. We're equaling that to the model name dot find params colon ID within the square brackets there. So this will find the ID of the model we're looking for. So that is the pattern for the show. We'll do 2 more, and then we'll go into the actual CRUD actions, the other CRUD actions that we don't have specified here. So then we'll go into a new. This one is also a read get. And then the new is just getting you, this will take you to the new form and also create an item in memory. So this one will only take you to the form itself. It doesn't create it in your database. That's not what the new is. So the pattern for the new here would be the model name singular again, equal to model name with a capital dot new, just like so. So we're creating a new instance of whatever object that we're doing, but only in memory. It's not until they hit submit, that's when we create it in our database. So that is the pattern for the new here. And then we have the edit. And this one is also read get. The reason being that this one will take you to the edit form. So the edit here takes you to the edit form. It also needs to find the item you are editing. So we need to find the item that we're editing. So a pattern for that is for edit, it would be at model name equal capital M model name dot find params ID. Then that will also take us into the form itself, because it also renders HTML afterwards. So that's the pattern for all of the read action. Now let's go into the actions of the other CRUD actions that we have. So then we have the create. This one actually does a post request. So this one will create an item in memory. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. So create the item that is in memory and then put it in the database. So after you hit submit, it will take the information that you put inside of the form here, and it will submit that information, go through the model, see if there's any constraints or validations or anything like that, and then it will submit it into the database. That's what the create does, is that this one actually does create it in the database. New just takes you into the form and only creates it in memory. So what this pattern will be is that it will be create, and the pattern will be at model name singular equals model name dot new, and we need to pass in the model name params. And make sure that you have those at the bottom portion of your file. So inside of the bottom portion, you'll have a private section, and you'll have an action here called model name params. So you have a method called model name params. The purpose of this params is to ensure that your parameters that you are putting in is the right ones that the database wants. No more, no less. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. So then we'll do params.require. That's what the pattern is. And then it will be colon the model name, singular, .permit. And then all of the attributes that that table has. So everything the table has. So you would list out every single attribute followed by a comma that it has. You don't need to do anything that the database creates for you, like the ID or create or update that. It's just every other thing that you need. So those are the permitted parameters that we're creating here at the create. That ensures that we have clean data coming in. And then afterwards, we'll do a conditional. And this really depends on what you want to do or where you want to go afterwards. So it'll be at model name dot saves, and then you would go somewhere or do something. Right. You would then, after you created that item, you might go back to the home page or something like that. Else, it will be render new. Else, if you can't be able to create it, that means that something went wrong. Let's take them back into the form again. So that is the create pattern. We have two more CRUD actions left. That is the update and destroy. So with the update, that one is a put request or a patch. Typically we use put. This one will update the item from the form that we have from the edit, and then it will update it in the database, and then update in the database. And then what this will look like is that this action here, we need to first find it. So it'll be at model name equals model name capitalized dot find params colon ID. So that's the pattern there. So we would replace the model name with the actual model name, and it'll be singular or capitalized depending on those items there. Then since it is update, let's do a conditional. It'll be if else end. So if at model name saves, so if dot updates in this case, with the permitted parameters, this will be model name params, then we'll do something. I think I said go somewhere. Yeah. Then we'll go somewhere afterwards. So that it's successful, you're able to update, then we'll go somewhere after that. Else we would render edit. We would render back the edit form there. Don't worry, I'll select this out after I'm done with this. And then lastly, we have the destroy. So destroy does a delete HTTP request. And this one will delete it from the database. So delete the record from the database. And there's actually two ways you can do this. Let me show you both of those ways. So it will be def destroy, and it has to be destroy here, lowercase. And the first way is you can do at model name singular equals capital M model name dot find params ID. This will find the item it is that you're looking for. And then afterwards, you can do at model name dot destroy. And then make sure that you take them somewhere afterwards. So send somewhere. Or else you'll get an error, or the user will get stuck at something that's already deleted. So that's one way you can do this. The other way that you can do this is that you can actually do both of those in one line, technically. You can do model name dot find params :id dot destroy, and then you'll take them somewhere, just like that. So that is what you would do in the typical patterns for destroy there. And then there's other things that you would put inside of your controllers, and those would be callbacks that we kind of talk about in the models. But these are a little bit different because they go and do the controllers. So we'll do callbacks like so. So callbacks. So these are to run logic at a certain point. And sometimes you can do callbacks to clean up code or to reuse code. So this is to have the same code in one place. So typical callbacks that we have is we have the before action, which runs before the action is triggered. And then there's also after action. And then there's also skip before action. And then skip after action. I typically don't see those used a lot, so just know what they are, but we won't use those. And then the other thing is that you can also add in like only and except options here. So only and except. For example, we'll run a before action, clean up code, only in index and show actions. So that's how we can use only and except. And we'll take a look at examples of those callbacks. So those are the patterns that all of your controllers will be at. And I would try to know what they are and to get used to those patterns. A good reference for you to use is inside of the DPL sheets and the Rails references. That pattern I just specified is all right here on this side here. So the controller actions, this is what we just did here. So these are the pattern of all of the controllers here. Okay, let's actually use this to our advantage. I'm actually going to put this side by side. I'll do the first one with you all, but then you all will have to help me to do the rest of them. So let's start to fill out our controller following the pattern that I specified here. So let's do the first one together. So we'll do the index here. And I'll do this side by side. So within the index, this shows you all of the subs. So the at model names equal model name.all here. So that is the pattern. So the model name, what is the model name for this particular controller here?
Subs.
Yep. So this one, since it's plural, it would be subs. So the model name here is going to be sub. That is the model we're dealing with. That's the sub here. And then since this one is plural, I'll pluralize this because we're talking about all of the subs. And we set that equal to capital model name.all. So it'll be capital sub.all. That's how we fill out the index there. Okay, do you want to do one more together, or do you think you can do it on your own? We'll do one more together. So we'll do the show here. So this will be the show here. So it'll be at model name, which would be at sub, singular, because there's no S here, equal capital model name dot find params ID. So this will be capital S sub dot find, and then within parentheses params ID, like so. So we're just following that pattern. So for this case, we have the model name is sub. Okay, I'm just gonna call students one by one, and then we'll fill out the rest of the controller. So let's do the new next. Let's have Braxton tell us what to put here.
Yes, sir. It's at sub equals capital sub dot new.
Awesome. So at sub equals sub.new. Yep, that's correct. We're just following that pattern there. Then let's go ahead and do edit. Let's have Diana do this edit here. So what would be here on line 92? Diana? So following this pattern, what would go in line 92? So the model name is sub here.
At sub.
Yep, at sub. And equals, what does that equal?
Sub.
And what's towards the end here?
Dot find.
Yep, dot find. And what's inside of the parentheses?
Params.
Yep, params. And then what's inside of the square brackets?
Colon ID.
Exactly. Awesome. Notice how this one is actually the same as that one. So
Yeah.
there might be a way for us to clean that up. But for now, we'll just leave it as is, just following the pattern. Okay, let's actually do this one next. We'll do the create next. And typically, you can put actions wherever. I typically put this right like after the new, because create and then you'll do the new. So let's do the create next. And let's have Ethan. What would we put here in the create?
Yeah, it would be at sub
Okay.
space equal sign capital sub
Okay.
dot new. And then would it just be sub underscore params?
Exactly. We'll come back to you, Ethan. Let's go ahead and do the sub param first before we forget. So let's do this portion right here before we forget. And typically, this will be at towards the bottom. Make sure that you're before the last end, because that ends the whole entire class. We want to still be in the class. This is just a separate item within the class. This one will be a private. And then we are calling this def subparams. And I'll have Skylar help us out with this one. This one is a little bit tricky because it does change depending on the project. But what goes here on line 101?
Okay. Primes required,
Yep.
require, and then sub,
Yep, colon sub.
and then period permit.
Yep, dot permit. And what are we permitting here?
We are permitting the create. So I'll
Close. So we're permitting everything the table has. So do you
all
remember
of them,
what
right?
this-
Edit, create.
let's check in our database. So what does a sub have here? So here's the sub table.
Oh, okay. It has those three. So name, create at, and update at.
Yep. In our case, we just need name. Those
Oh,
other
okay.
things we don't need to have that.
Oh, data time. Okay, yeah. So it's just the string.
Yep. So just the name. So then here it'll be colon name.
Okay. And then no, you don't need to put everything.
No,
The
not
table
this.
does?
Case. Just
Okay.
those fields.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Sweet. So now that we are done with that portion of the subs params, let's now go back to our logic here. So what is our condition here, Ethan?
If at sub name dot save.
Close.
Oh, is it sub params?
Very close.
Um.
So this is at model name.save.
Oh, got it. So sub dot save.
Correct. Awesome.
Then do.
Yeah. Well, let's just redirect them to the root path, which is like the home page.
Okay.
That's really up to the application. And then what's the else?
Render space semicolon new.
Yep. Else will render out the new. Nice. So now let's do our last two. And then I'll just open this up to volunteers. I typically do the update one right under the edit, just because they are related to each other. That's just my preference. So here, who wants to volunteer to help me fill out the update?
I'll do it.
Sure.
All right. So sub or at sub, yeah, equals. We sub capital sub,
Yep.
and then dot find, and then parameters, parameters. Then the arrays ID or dot, yeah, the dot ID.
Awesome.
Okay.
And what is the condition?
The condition would be at sub.
Yep.
And then params ID again.
Close. Need to do this portion now.
Okay, so you got to put update.
Yep.
Dot update. Then the params ID.
Not
Or
params ID. This would be the model names ID, which would be this one.
Oh, sub params. Okay.
Sub params. Nice. And then
And we want it.
redirect to the root again here.
Okay.
So what would the else be?
Render edit. That one. Okay.
Nice. Awesome.
All right. Cool.
Then that is the update. Now let's do the destroy. I'll do it both ways, just so you can see like the differences between the syntax and all that. So let's do the first way first. Who wants to do that one next?
I can do it.
Go ahead.
So we're doing the destroy. So it's at sub equals capital sub dot find parentheses params brackets colon ID, and then next line is at sub dot destroy, and then enter send somewhere.
Yes. Take them to the root path again.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks. And then the alternative one would be like this. And who wants to do this last one right here? Someone besides Skylar and Braxton.
So it'd be capital sub dot find parentheses params square bracket semicolon ID.
Yep.
And then close it dot destroy.
Nice.
And then sends root directory.
Yep.
I mean root. Yeah.
Exactly. Sweet. Great job, everyone. Let me see. We'll just stick with the first one. I wouldn't do both. I would do one or the other. It will try to delete the same one twice, and it doesn't exist. So yeah, great job. So now you can see that every single controller has that particular pattern. So now that we went through that, the next one you'll do will be a little bit easier, and then the next one will be a lot more easier, etc. Any questions about that process or about that pattern or anything like that? Okay. Technically, we could clean things up. We could clean up the edit, update, show, and destroy because they all have the same lines of code. It's at sub equals sub.find params ID. And if it's repeating itself like that, it's not really that dry. So we can dry it up a bit by doing a callback. So technically, you could do a callback here, but for example's sake, I'll just leave this as it is. We'll actually do a callback in our next controller after that. So we'll do it that way next. So let's actually, before we move on, we'll go into the views. So this is how the controller is. So this is all you need to do for the controller. Just follow the pattern, fill it out for the context that you have. Like in this case, we have it for sub. And that's it. That's your controller. Now, the next step, let's go ahead and go into the views. So it will be the same exact folder, app, and then the views folder. And in this case, we're in the subs folder right here. Let's actually go into the index file like so. So we're right here. This is where all of the subs are going to be located at. So I'll just say subs here. And this is both HTML and ERB. As you remember in ERB, there's two tags. There's the first tag. This will break on me. I'll put this in the notes inside of the README here. That way it won't break on me or yell at me or anything like that. So the first one is called a non-echoing tag. So this is non-echoing. And then the other one that we have is the exact same one, but with the equal sign at the very beginning. This one is actually called echoing tag. And technically there is one more. This is like a comment. So that's if you want to do an ERB comment. But usually you would do these in ERB. So ERB stands for embedded Ruby. So inside of that particular file, this index.html.erb, we're able to do both HTML and Ruby inside of that particular file. And if you want to do Ruby, you need to use these ERB tags here. We have the echoing and non-echoing tags. So the difference between them is that the echoing is going to be shown onto the screen. So this will be shown on the screen. The non-echoing will not show, and it's mostly for logic. And then that one's a comment that's pretty much self-explanatory. So typically, if you're doing like a loop or any sort of logic within Ruby, you would use a echoing tag. I would a non-echoing tag. I would also do a non-echoing tag for your end as well. If you want to show stuff like links or any Rails helpers, then you would do it with the echoing tag. So go ahead and put this in your notes. I put it in the README. That way it won't give me errors when I run my stuff. So in our case, let me go ahead and kind of walk you through what each of the actions are doing that we just created. So here, inside of our controller, we specified actions. Again, actions are things that you can do within your program. So index will show you all of the items. This will show you a single one. This one is the new form. This one actually creates it in the database. This one is the edit form. And this one will edit in the database, and destroy will destroy in the database. And then the subparams will help you provide clean data. So we'll come back to that in a sec of what I mean by that. So within the index, that's the page that we're currently in. what we're doing here is that we are creating a variable and setting it to all of the subs in the database. Something else is that anything with a get request, so if I put get or read right next to the action, so that would be show new and edit, they have a corresponding HTML page here. So Rails already does this for us. It does a render index.html.erb. It does that in the backend. It does that like it's part of the Rails magic. It does this in the backend. So right after that we created this variable, it then renders this specific page here. So that means that we were able to use that variable of @subs. So @subs is all of the subs within our database. And we can use that like so. I'm going to put it in a UL. And within that, I'm going to use the non-echoing tag because I'm going to do a loop. So with the non-echoing tags, I'll use our variable of @subs, which is all the subs that we created this variable right here. And I'm just going to do a each do loop. So it'll be each do. I'm going to call each one of those sub. You can call it whatever you want, whatever makes sense. And then end it there because it's still Ruby. I still need to end my loops. And then afterwards, inside of this LI, I have an opening and closing LI. I am going to do an echoing tag here. So with this echoing tag, I'm actually going to use something from Rails. So within Rails, you're able to do a link to. So link to is actually a helper that creates links to navigate you somewhere within the routes. So it takes in a few parameters. The first one is what you want it to say. In this case, we can do sub's name. So this sub, so okay, let's just take it back real quick. So we're looping through each of the subs in our database. We're referencing each one of those as sub. And then here, I'm pulling in the sub that I'm looping through, its name right here. So this will print out all of the subs names there. And then afterwards, I need to take them somewhere. In this case, I want them when they click on a sub, it should take them to the sub show. So that is the path I want. If I want to do anything with routing, I need to look inside of my routes. So this is the routes here. We're going to do these routes right here. So if I want to go to the sub show right here to the right-hand corner, I need to pass in the ID. So I need to pass in which sub I'm talking about, and I need to go to the subs path. So that is the helper I can use in my views. So then it will be subs path, and I need to pass in the sub ID. But Rails is so smart. It actually is smart enough to know that if you are just saying sub, which is the instance of a single sub, it will take you to the show page and it will pull in the ID for you. So this will actually take you to the show page. That's just a shorthand of how you can do it. The longhand is what I just did before, which is the subs path. You're passing in the sub there. So you can do it either way. Most cases you would do it this way. This won't show anything just because we don't have any subs in our database, and I don't think our database is running either. Oh, yeah, our server isn't running. So we could change that. So yesterday I told you how to create subs in your database. We can technically still do that inside of our project, but I would rather have it be done a different way. I'd rather have it be done inside of our application. So instead of creating it inside of our database, I'm actually going to create a link and link them to the form, and they have to create subs inside of the program itself instead of inside of the database. So that will ensure that it will work. So first off, I need to have a link, and I need to link to, I'll have it say create new sub. And I need to link it to the new subs path. So I need to go to the subs controller. So it's a subs controller, new action. That's the one I want. I don't want to go to create because that will actually create it. I want to go to the form. So if I want to do that, then it will be this particular path here. So new subs path. Let's actually type that here. So new subs path, just like so. So that will take me to the new form. Okay. So within the new form, something that I forgot to mention inside of, well, I did mention it on Monday, but inside of the new and edit, they actually have the exact same form. So inside of the form that we did on Monday for the contact list, let me actually show you that real quick. There actually are the same exact form. Let me go into my GitHub and show you it. Luckily for us, we did it recently, so it wouldn't take long. We did blog the first day, didn't we? Yeah, sorry, I meant blog. Let's do blog. And then inside of the app views, posts, or pages. So the new, actually we'll do this in a new tab. And the edit actually has the same code, the same exact form there. So it has form for page, due, label, title, author, body, submit. And for the new, has the exact same thing, just like so. The only thing different is maybe the title is different. But if you put these side by side, they're actually the exact same form. So if that's the case, I could just do the exact same form and then copy and paste them. But that's actually not a dry way of doing things. A better thing to do is something that we encountered within our application is that we're doing a shared view. So shared view is something that you are able to use within your application that you can use multiple times. And on Monday, how we did that is with the nav bar. We went inside of layouts and then we built out a nav bar and then reference it inside of these files here. So there's two ways you can do that. You can find one of those ways inside of the lecture. The other way is that you can do it inside of these files here. But first, I would actually do a new file here. And then if it's a share view, you actually want to make a partial. So partial always starts with an underscore. I'm just going to call this form.html.erd. So we'll do a new form here. Let me actually slack out what I have in the index. So this is inside of app, views, subs, index. And here, I'm in the side of the form. And then this is where we'll be building out the form. But before we build out the form, I need to reference this form inside of my new and edit. Because right now, if I do go to the new, it'll go to this page. I want it to go to this page here. I mean this form here. So I'm actually going to do it this way. This will be like edit sub, and the edit sub one. And then this will be new sub and the new sub one. Now here, this is where you would reference your individual partial here. The way that we did it is that we use the echoing tag, like so. I'll double check this during break. And then we did render partial, and in our case is form. Yeah, let me double check that during break to make sure all of those work correctly. We can actually see right now if it does create it. I'll just put like a P tag here for a test. And then I'll run my server, see if this works. So give me a sec to do that. So now if you launch your server, the localhost 3000, since that is the root route, that is the root route right here. Root path, that will take you to the subs index page. So that is why it will take me here eventually. Oh, it doesn't like the validation. It's validates and colon name. So validates is plural there. So let's go ahead and fix that. It's inside of app model sub, and this is validates name presence true. Let's see if that fixes it. There we go. So yeah, I was just missing the S there inside of the models. So inside of app models submodel, I was just missing this S on the validates. I just did validate. It's validates plural. And here, let's click on this. Awesome. So it looks like it is the right one. Go ahead and select that out then. So here, inside of app view subs new, we will have this form right here. So this will be app views subs new, and that's the content of that file right there. And also make sure that you have this partial form here as well, because we'll be using that after break. Okay, any questions of what we did thus far with the index or the controller? It's a little bit different than what we're used to. Okay, let's go ahead and go into our last break. Let's come back at 8:15. Okay, let's go ahead and go into the final stretch. So picking off where we left off, we are continuing to build out our application. We already built out the models and controllers. Now we're diving into the views for each of the Crud actions. So for this Crud action, we already did the index. So we're able to see all of the subs, and we are also able to go to the form. So that's where we left off, is inside of this form here. So let's actually have this code, the render partial form, also inside of the edit here as well. So let's be sure to put this here inside of our edit. So let me also slack out this code. So the app views sub edit. And then I'll have it say edit sub here and sub new, just like so. And that will link us to this form right here. So let's go ahead and build out the form. So I am going to have a echoing tag. And then I'm actually going to have 3 echoing tags after that, and then 1 non-echoing tag. And let me show you why. So the first echoing tag is for the form helper. And this one is a Rails helper that just creates a form and also does a lot of stuff in the back end, such as to make sure it goes to the right place. So this is the form for. If we take a look inside of our controller, let me go ahead and exit out some of these. As you start to develop, you'll get tons and tons of tabs if you don't have any already. So here we're at the new. So at sub is a new instance of a sub. So we are doing a form for at sub, a new instance of a sub. So inside of this, I am going to do F for form item, and I'll end it before I forget. So it will be f.label. That is the label for the particular field. This is the name column. So if you forgot what the sub has, go ahead and check your schema. Sub has a name here. So that is what we need to put inside of our form. Let's also do a text field. There's also like other items like radio buttons as well. And I would just use them if I need them. But here I'll just do a text field for name. And then let's go ahead and do a required true. This is a front end validation. That means that they can't submit the form until they fill out this particular field. And then lastly, I'm actually going to do it this way of f.submit. So this is our submit button here. So here is our form. So this is inside of our app views, subs, and it is the partial, so underscore form.html.erb. That is the content of that partial there. So let's go ahead and try this out. So our server should be running. Let me double check. That is not the right server. Make sure your server is running. There we go. Yep, looks like our server is running here. And then go ahead and collapse this. And let's go ahead and go into our web page. We'll create a new sub. That will take us to a new form. Awesome. And I'll just say like kittens. That's a good sub inside of our subreddit. And we'll do a create there. And then it should show up at the index here. And it should take us back into our code here. So I'm going to create a couple. Do one for puppies. Oh, nice. And one for birds. Okay. So the next item of business is to go into each of those individual subs, like for puppies and kittens. And it will show the subs detail as well as any other actions we need to do in them. So let's go ahead and do that next. This would be inside of this page here, which is the show page. So let's go into the show page, and this is right here. So what I'm actually going to do is that for the H1, I'm actually going to echo out the sub's name. That way, whatever sub we are at, we're able to access that. And this variable comes from our controller. So if you take a look inside of our controller, since we're doing a show, this will be the show here. At sub equals to sub.find params ID. What this does is that will return to you a single sub that you're looking for. In our case, this will just give you the sub's name. And then I'll probably do like a p tag, what do you want to do? So inside of the lecture we did on Monday, I did the edit and delete inside of this particular index here, which you could do. So you can put the index, you could put the edit and the delete in the index here. And that's totally up to you. The other way of you can do it is you can do it within the show page itself. So within the show page, you would do it like so. It would be, we'll do a couple of them. We'll do a link to echoing tag. 3 of them. And the first one will be link to edit sub. And if I want to go to the edit sub, I need to go into the browse and see where that page is. So let's scroll down to the subs. I want to go to the subs edit action, which is the edit form there. So if that's the case, I need to pass in the sub ID, pretty easy, and it will be the edit subs path. So let's go ahead and do that. So this would be edit sub path, and I need to pass in the sub ID. In this case, we can just pass in the whole entire object of at sub, and it knows that it can grab the ID from there. And then we'll have a delete to. I'll do a BR here so they're not all in one line. So we'll have another link to for the delete. And we'll test this out as we go. So we'll do delete sub. And the actual route doesn't really matter. But we need to pass in the sub that we are deleting. And this would be method delete. So what this will do is that this will take you to the edit form. So once you click on here, that will go into the routes. And that will take you into the controller and then inside of this particular action here. And then within the action, we need to find at sub, and then that will then take you into the form. So let's go ahead and see how that looks like here. So I'm going to refresh. So let's go ahead and edit it. We'll say cats. update, and it does update and put it towards the bottom. Awesome. Looks like our update works. Looks like I do have an error in my edit. There we go. I just forgot ending one right there. So let me go ahead and edit that inside of the Slack message. Okay, so since that one is working, that one's all set to go. And then we'll have the deleted at. So let's go ahead and try that one out. So if we do a delete at, if you click on that link, if you click on this link right here, that will lead you into the routes. And it sees that you are doing a delete with the sub ID. That will take you to the subs controller destroy action. So then you'll go into the subs controller destroy action. It will find the sub and then it will destroy it, and then it will link you into the root path. So let's go ahead and see if that works. And if it does, I'll Slack everything out. So let's go ahead and delete the sub. And it looks like it deleted it. And you can check in your database. It did delete it within SQL. And I also deleted it from our database. Awesome. So now we have a fully functioning CRUD application for the sub. So next would be the topics. And we'll see how far we can get with the topics and comments. So let's for sure do the topics next. So I'll actually have a link here that goes to all of the topics for the individual sub. So this would be a link to view topics. And then that would have a specific route. I wanted to go to the topics index route. So if that's the case, it has to have the sub in front of it. So it would be this one right here. So if it's topic controller index, then it will be the subtopics path, and I need to pass in the sub ID here. Okay, so that would be the sub topics plural path. And I need to pass in the sub ID, which in this case I can just pass in at sub. So that should take me to the topics index page for that particular sub. So let's go ahead and select this out. This is in the app views, subs, and then this is in the show. There we go. So now let's go ahead and we'll talk about the topics now. So subs is already done. So when we give you all an assignment and we say we want all CRUD actions for all of the tables, that means that you're able to create a new sub, like what we can do here. You're able to see all of the subs. You're able to see a single sub. You're able to edit the sub. And it does successfully edit, and you're able to delete the sub. So that's what we mean when we say all CRUD actions within the tables. So make sure you're able to do that. Okay, so let's go into a particular sub, and then we'll need to view the topics for that sub. We're just going one more layer deep here. And we'll see how much we can get to for the third one, but we'll for sure get into the second one. So we already went through all of the trouble of creating the models and associations like so. So now let's actually fill out the controller. So it'll be app controller, topics controller here.
Would you actually Slack out that last page?
Yes, it's inside of Slack. So now let's fill out the topics controller following the pattern. But here's the catch. This has a relationship between the sub. So this is a children controller, technically. So if that's the case, we would need to tweak our pattern just a bit. And let me show you what I mean by that. So we take a look inside of our child controller section inside of the DPL sheets. It's just right under the controller actions. We need to replace everything that has the capital M model name inside of the pattern with the @parent.children's. So @parent.children's. The other thing that we need to do is that we need to make sure that we have a parent always within this controller. So we need to do a before action set parent and then set parent down here. So let's actually do that before we forget. Let's do this portion first, and we'll see how we can fill out this particular controller. So let's do the topics controller now. So at the very top, we need to do a callback. So the callback is going to be a before action. And I want to tell the controller that we need to set the parent before we do anything. And I want to do this for all of the actions. So there's no exceptions or onlys or anything after that. I want to do this at every single method. Make sure you run set parent first. So let's actually define what set parent is. So that is in the private def set parent. In this case, the parent, who's the parent of topics? Who's the parent of topics?
Sub.
Sub. So in this case, and this would be set sub. So this one would be set sub. And I'll end it before I forget. So now it will be at parent equals model name of the parent, capitalized, dot find params colon parent ID. So if that's the case, it will be at the parent, which would be sub, equals the model name of the parent, which is capital S sub dot find params, and it's not ID here, it's parent ID. So that will be sub underscore ID. This should match your routes here. So the sub ID like so. So those two should match. I lost. Oh, here. Okay. And then now we can go ahead and follow the pattern. I'm actually going to clean it up just a bit by using a callback. And then I'll show you how that would look like. But we're still following the pattern, but anything with a capital M model name, we're replacing it with the parent here. I'll do this one here, and then I'll have you do the comments, maybe for homework or something. So now we'll do index at, in this case, the model names is topics. And since this is a child, instead of capital M model name, it will be at sub.topics, like so. We'll need to do a dot all here, because this one will give you an array of all the topics. So there's no dot all for the index for a child. And then show actually could be blank, because as you remember, inside of our subs controller, we have this line of code multiple times. We have it in the show, edit, update, and destroy, right? We have that same line of code over and over again. Let's actually dry things up. We'll actually do a callback of before action, and we'll say set topic. So this one will find a topic, and I'll have this be only the ones that repeat, which would be show, edit, update, and destroy. Don't worry, I'll slack this out towards the end. Awesome. So then what I can do is that I can define that towards the bottom here. So I would do def set topic. And then it would be the common code, which is this line right here. So if that's the case, it will be at topic equals capital T topic dot find params ID. Sometimes you may write it like this way. Other times I actually seen it be written like this. It would be like the parent, which would be at sub.topics.find ID. So you can actually do it two ways. The first way will look through all of the topics. This one will look through all the topics within the sub you specify. So I'll just leave that there as notes. So then if that's the case, that is going to be run only on show, edit, update, and destroy. So our show and edit are actually done for now because our before action handles that for us. So now we can do the new now. That would be the at model name, which is at topic equals, in this case, it will be at sub because it is a child. So we're replacing everything with a capital M model name with at the parent dot children's. Like so, dot name. Edit is done. So we don't need to do edit. Let's go ahead and do create. I'll put create right under new. So def create. It'll be at topic equals at sub dot the parent and then dot children's dot new. And I need to do the topic params here. I think by now you'll probably see that words probably look funny. This is really how you spell topics. Now it looks like toothpicks or something like that. It's just a font. You're just staring at it for a while. So sometimes I may have like spelling errors. That's because words just look weird eventually. I'll probably have this go into a certain page. I'll come back to that. I'll do render new. So the if statement here is if at topic dot saves, then I'll do something. I actually will redirect or render. I'll do redirect. And in this case, if I want to go to a single topic I just created, I need to pass in the sub as well as the topic I just created. And I need to do that within an array. So this will take you to the show page. So the show page. And with the show page, you need to pass in both the parent and the child. Or else you can just do at topic if it's a parent. So that one's the show page there. So let's go ahead and do topic params before we forget. This one rarely changes. So it'll be def topic params. That is this one right here. So then it will be params.require. And then this one will be the model name, which is topic.permit. And then everything that we want to permit is everything a topic has. So let's go ahead and check our database. I actually forgot what a topic has. So DB schema. And it looks like topic has a title and body. So we only need to do title and body. We don't need the sub ID or create that or anything like that. So all we need is the title and body. So it'll be :title. And then also the body, like so. Next, we'll do the update. I'll put that right under the edit. So it'll be def update. And we technically have this first line covered with our before action. So we'll need to do that first line again. And then we'll do at topic dot update with the topic params. Else and then I'll probably redirect them back to the show page. Else I'll render edit. So I'm still following the pattern. We're just changing it slightly. And then lastly, we have the destroy. We'll do def destroy. Def, what the, that was weird. And then here, since I have this part already created for us, then I can just do these two parts there. But if you're doing it this way, then the before action won't work. It only works for this certain way. So at this, it would be at topic.destroy. And then I'll send them, I'll redirect them back to the subs topics path, which would be let's see, the subs topic path, which would be the index right here. And I also need to pass in probably the parent. Yeah. So let me go ahead and pass in the parent. Okay. So again, if it's a child controller, where did my code go? Then it will follow the same exact pattern, but we're only changing things slightly. So anything with a capital T topic, it will be changed to a at parent.child here. And then we are also cleaning things up with the before action. So then our show and update and destroy and edit, they're more dry. So this is an app controllers. And this is the topics controller. So that is the pattern for a child controller. I would just use this one as an example. Okay. It pretty much acts the exact same way, but this is for a topic. So now that we have the topics done, let's go ahead and build out some of the views. I won't do all of them, just save up on time. I'll do some of the views. So let's go into app views, and then it would be topics index. This one is for sure that we are listing at. So one thing that we do have is that we have that before action running on all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an echoing tag of at sub.name. So that will say which sub that we're in. And I'll call topics. And then afterwards, I am going to link to a new topic. So this would be like echoing tag. And I am going to link to create a new topic. And then let's check the path for that. If you want to go to a new topic, it is this new form here. That is new subtopic path. And I need to pass in the sub ID. So if it has a colon ID or whatever ID it is, that means I need to pass in the information there. Just like so. And then let me also list out all of the topics. I'll probably do them in a UL again. Again, we'll learn how to style on a whole nother day. For now, it just looks a little bit basic for now. So then here, I have a non-echoing tag. I'm going to loop through that variable that we created right here. So this index page, that is what is going to be rendered out right after we are redirected into the routes, into the controller, and we're inside of this particular place here. So that is the add topics.each do. I'm going to call each one of those topic and then end it, which I did. And for our li, ending li, like so. I am going to do a link to link it to the topic's name, or in this case, I have it as title, and then it would be the show page. So again, if you want to go to the show page, you can do the whole entire path. But a better thing to do is you can pass in the parent and the child. In this case, the child is this topic that we're looping through. And then the parents at sub, we always have access to at sub at the child side. Because again, it is inheritance. Everything the parent has, the child also has. So we do have access to the parent here. So here is the index for the topic. So it'll be app views, topic, and then index. Okay. So this is the birds topic, and we're able to create a new topic. We still need to build out the form and other things. So let's just do the form for now. And then we'll probably do part of the show, and we'll see what we can do with those fields. Let's go ahead and clean things up with a partial again. So again, let's go ahead and create a new file, call it form.html.erb inside of the topics folder. Dang it, I did the wrong extension. Make sure you have that file inside of the topics folder. And then inside of the new topic and edit topic, I'll just do it this way. So I'll do new topic and then edit topic like so. And then we're actually going to put the exact same line of code that we have right here. Just because it's in a new folder, it won't reference the wrong file. So go ahead and put, so this is what the new will look like. Let me go ahead and select this out. So this would be views/topics/new. And then this is the edit now. We're doing the exact same thing here, but we're just saying edit topic here. Like so. Okay. We already got that covered. Let's go ahead and start to fill out the form. So this is going to be the form right here. So the form will it only has a name and a body. It won't be that bad. So let's see. I'll do echoing tag here. And it has a label and text field for the title, another one for body, another one for the submit, and then an ending one here for the end. So then here, I am going to have a form for, and this is really important. Since this is a child, I need to specify the parent and the child. So make sure that inside of the form for the children, you need to specify the parent and the child. In this case, I'm specifying the @sub and the @topic. Because we're not just making a topic out of the blue. We're making a topic under a specific sub. Okay. And this will be f.label, title, and then we'll do f.text field, title. This one will be required, true. And I'll do the same thing almost for the body. So I'll change this to body and this one to body. But this one will actually be a text area. So I'll change that a little bit there. And afterwards, this will be f.submit. Okay. Rails is smart enough to know that it'll change the submit message depending on if it's edit or create. So it depends on this @topic here. So this is the form partial inside of the topic. Awesome. Let's go ahead and try that out. We'll create a new topic, title food or feed. Lots of food. That will take you to the show. Awesome. So it looks like we have topics there. Sweet. So now let's do that next page, and that would be, I'm pretty sure that's where we can get to for now. So now let's go into the topic show page, and we'll start to fill out this particular topic. So for the show, I am going to do this here. It would be the sub's name and the topic's name together. So it'll be at sub.name because we do have access to that in the show action. And then it would be another one. This is a separate Ruby one for the topic here. And the topic has a title. Okay.
You're missing a percentage sign on the sub name.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's also have a P. I'll do like a BR here. And then we'll do like a P tag. And then this is where we'll put the body of the topic. So that topic.body. Awesome. And then we'll do a bunch of link tos. First link to, which is going to be an edit. So that would be like edit topic. And then it will be like edit sub. I'll just look it up. So this would be the edit action. And you pass in the sub ID and the topic ID. So if that's the case, then it will be edit subtopic. So edit sub underscore topic underscore path. And I need to pass in both the at sub and also the topic inside of an array because I need to pass both of them. If I don't do it without the array, it will do one or the other. So that's why I do need array, which means both. Awesome. We'll go ahead and try that out. After we do a delete topic like so. And this one, again, you need to pull the parent and the child. So at topic like so. And then here, the method is delete. Cool. And then finally, probably do another place link to go into the comments. But let's test out what we have. We'll create a bunch. Let's go ahead and edit this topic. And let's delete it. And it does delete it. Awesome. So now we have full CRUD actions for the sub and full CRUD actions for the topic. So we have 2 models down, 1 to go. Okay. Let me see. I think for the comments, I will release the lecture, but I actually want you to take what we learned today, especially with the pattern of what we covered. So this pattern right here. And it will be a little bit different. It will be a little different because it is another child controller. So you would have to replace the parent and child like so. So just for a hint for you to get started inside of the comments, we'll go ahead and create those in a sec. It will look a lot like the topics controller, but it will have different items. So the parent would be the topic and the child would be the comments. So that would be how you fill out the controller. And then how you would fill out the CRUD actions is very similar to how you would do for the topics. And I'll probably release a video, or will probably look for a video I did last cohort so you can see the answers for those once you think that you got everything. So let's go ahead and get you started of the comments, and then I'll go ahead and review everything like so. So let's go ahead and stop our server. I'm actually going to push everything up real quick. Get commit -m. I did the sub CRUD and topic CRUD. git push origin master.
And could you Slack us the show,
Yeah.
Paris? Thank you.
Yeah, let me do one more thing and then I'll Slack out the show. So just to get you all started, so with the show, we'll do a link to, and this will be the all comments for this topic. And this will link you into the comments index page. So what that will look like is that it would be let's take a look. It'll be topics comment path, and you need to pass in the parent there. So this would be topic comments plural path, and we need to pass in the parent. Okay. And then that will get you started to get into there. So this one would be app/views/topics/show. The other thing that we need to create is the models and controllers. So let's go ahead and do those before we end class, and then I'll wrap everything up that we did thus far and to point out key details of what we need to do. So for the comment, we'll do bundle exact Rails G model comment. And then I guess from our planning here, comment only has an author and a body with the relationship to the comment, to the topic. So then it will be the author and the author. No, it's like this. There we go. And then the body, which would be text. And again, since this is a child, we need to specify the parent. So it'll be topic : belongs to. Those are connected, by the way. It's just kicked off to the next line at the right place. So go ahead and run this by this line of code. And since that does create a new migration file, we also need to do a bundle exact rake db migrate. And then afterwards, we already created the routes for them, so that part should be good. Now let's go ahead and create the controller. So it'll be bundle exec Rails G controller. In this case, is comments plural. And I would do index, show, new, and edit. And we'll do --skip routes. Okay, and that should get you all the files necessary to get you started with the comments. Awesome, let's go ahead and use the last few minutes to wrap up everything with what we've done thus far. So with today, we actually went through all of the MVC inside of Rails. So when we create individual tables for each of our items, we create them within the model. So that will then create tables within our database. And each model has their own attributes. And then some of the models might be related to each other. So it might have a parent to child relationship like so. After that, we then talked about routes. So essentially inside of your config folder routes like so, we define our routes here. So essentially what routes are is that within the web pages, you would go into the URL, and then depending on the URL, as well as the type of request it is, it will lead you to a certain route, so a certain place. So this is where we define where and what each of those routes are. And typically, if you are doing a single route, you would use resources. That will give you all the actions necessary for a particular controller. But if you have a parent-to-child relationship, you would wrap the parent and then the child would be inside of the parent. And don't go more than one layer deep. If you have a second one, just wrap the parent and child in a separate embedded routes. And then we also talk about custom routes and essentially how they look like so. So typically you would reference your routes from localhost 3000/rel/info/routes. And then this is what helper we use. This is the HTTP verb, the URL, and then the endpoint. This is essentially where we will end up being here. And that takes us into the controller. So the controller itself follows a specific pattern. We went over that pattern in class. So it follows a specific pattern depending on each of the individual ones there. So I would really take note of that pattern because it's the exact same pattern in all of your controllers. The only thing different is that if you have a child controller, like what we have with topic, and later on what you will have for comments, it will look like this. So you're actually replacing everything with a capital M model name with the parent.children's like so. So it'll be parent.children's here. And we also cleaned up everything a bit with the before action. So that is the before action callback like so. So that way the code that we have shared from the show, edit, update, and destroy, we can just eliminate that and then just call it once at the bottom here. And then we're able to clean up our code a lot, just like that. And then afterwards, once you fill out your controllers, you're then going into the views. Each of the views will correspond to a particular page. So this is the index page. Again, make sure that you only have pages for those routes and for those requests that has a get or a read. You don't need pages for like a create, update, or destroy, because those are just actions you do in the database. So with each of these pages, they will correspond to each of the actions that need a page. So this is the index page. The edit and new actually has the same form here. And then we also have the show page here. And you can also do your CRUD actions inside of the show page, or you can do it in the index page. It's really up to you how you want to do that. And that's typically the pattern of what you would do in the views. It will look like looping through all of the subs, showing details for a single sub, doing the edit action, the new action, and delete action. And then you go into the children's here. And if it's a child, it's the exact same pattern, but you just need to pass in the parent everywhere. So that's why we have like the parent topic path, the parent here. The forms are pretty much the same, except for the top part right here, you need to pass in the parent. And finally in the show, you also need to pass in the parent everywhere. So just note that for your comments, later on when you have the views for the comments, you also need to pass in topic because that's the parent. So that's pretty much it. The main takeaway for this lecture is to make sure you do know the pattern, because again, everything inside of coding, you'll start to see a pattern. So just use this reference. I have a reference for creating a new project, the controllers, child controllers, things like that. We'll talk about authentication a little bit later, but everything else will be relevant. So any questions before I let you all go? There is going to be a like a assignment, but I'd rather have you work on the comments instead. So I'll create a separate assignment for that for extra practice. Skylar, did you have a question?
Yeah, I forgot how to get to the help section for the website. Like when you go from not this one, yeah, the Reddit file. Then you have all the pathways and the IDs.
Oh,
how do you get to
here?
that again? Yeah, that one.
It would be with this URL right here.
I just use that. Okay.
That would be the same throughout any project.
All right.
Nice. Any other questions? Awesome. So later on, probably tomorrow, or maybe later on tonight, I will release a video of how you would fill out the comments. So go ahead and try it out for yourself first, and then I will release a video from last cohort when I did it, and then I'll show you how that works there. Yeah, if you don't have any other questions, I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.
You the man, Henry. You the man.